Welcome into the FFU, the double FU, the FU times two, that fantasy football universe. As you can see, we are in space. Somehow we are surviving with our lack of fantasy air because we got 6 teams on bye this week. I don't know how the hell we're going to cope, but Ravens, Broncos, Texans, Colts, Patriots, and Commanders all on bye this week. It is Bye-Mageddon Part 2 in the NFL, just in time for a must-win to get into the fantasy playoffs. Week 14. So thankful that the NFL did this to us. I am Jeremy Schulman, hashtag Baker Gone Cook. This is Jesse Miller, hashtag loving me some golf. We're going to talk all about quarterbacks and tight ends today in our Week 14 rankings. But first, Jesse, what's going on,
man? I'm terrified just looking at these rankings, and I'm like, we can't even rank 27 dudes. It's bad news bear. So you'll see with tight ends, once it gets to a certain point, it's kind of just like pick your favorite guy, because a lot of these guys run these just the same role, just a better or worse offenses. So yeah, it's going to be fun though. Like I'm excited for a few of these guys, and when we get to a certain point, I'm just going to throw my hands up and be like, you know what? This sounds good, because a couple of these are rough. Not going to lie. But, I'm excited. It's playoffs, baby. Let's get to it.
That's it. Honestly, like you said, you get to a certain point, you just feel like,
I need air. Help.
Air's getting a little thin. But let's talk first about the quarterbacks, and we'll start with the high-end guys so that we can breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief here. Hopefully you have one of these guys, especially in single quarterback leagues. So these are our consensus rankings. This is myself, Jesse, and SC at the moment. Our FFU consensus for Week 14. We are talking about half PPR. And of course, standard quarterback scoring, that's 4 points per passing touchdown. So let's get into it with our quarterbacks. Our top 6 are Josh Allen comes in at number 1 at Los Angeles, facing the Rams. Jalen Hurts at 2 against Carolina, juicy matchup. Joe Burrow at Dallas. Talk about a juicy matchup. He is our 3rd ranked quarterback. We got Baker Mayfield going against Vegas at home. Number 4, Kyler Murray at 5 against your Seattle Seahawks, and Sam Darnold at 6. And at least I'm not the only guy who has Sam Darnold ranked this high. This is a stupid ranking for Sam Darnold, but here we are, Week 14. Why not? Jesse, let's talk about someone.
Yeah, the community loves himself some Sam Darnold this week, and I'm like, that just sounds treacherous, because we know Sam Darnold and how that can be, where you're like, you know what, this is the perfect week, and then here comes the eggshell, and you get 5 points. But overall, their offense is incredible, so I'm not too worried about it. But let's talk about top guys. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't put Hurts at 1. I was just looking at the rankings, and I was like, he's playing Carolina. He should be at 1. So I just put him at 1. But like Allen's there by default, just because Josh Allen's got your quarterback. Everyone outside Josh Allen, you saw like even against San Francisco, he only had 18 pass attempts. It didn't matter. He was single-handedly carrying that team. It's just the Josh Allen, and the vibes are incredible with Josh Allen. That's what it is, and that's probably why he's the leader for MVP, because statistically, hasn't been a great season for him. It's been good, but it's not been like high caliber MVP status. But just the vibes are out of control with him. And then you get to these other guys, right? Like we talk about Burrow, smoke show Joe Burrow, just putting up an insane amount of points, going up against Dallas's defense, which cannot stop anyone. So of course we're going to have him that high. So if you have them, and we'll see in the other positions that we're going to rank, like with all of the paid people in this game, I want to start all the Cowboys and I will start all the Bengals, because this game has an insanely high over-under. Like it's wheels up. So yeah, I'm very excited for Burrow. Heck, I'm even excited. I know we were talking about off-screen Cooper Rush. Like I'm fine starting Cooper Rush if you have to, because
yes, sir.
Bengals defense is trash. It's real bad. Real bad. So yeah, this if you have any of these top 6 guys, like Baker Mayfield against Vegas, easy money right there. Like you talk about that. Jordan Love's probably the most interesting. I have him right there on the borderline at 6, but you can make the case for any of these guys to kind of go it. So it's really more of the top 3. Then it's the second tier. Mm-hmm. I do feel a little treacherous about Kyler, I'm not going to lie. Kyler at 5. With Seattle's defense the past few weeks, it's been really, really good and strong. And we saw previously when they played Seattle a few weeks ago, Kyler was not good in that game. They struggled offensively. I'm expecting more of that, but it's just the rushing for that boost, Kyler. And a lot of these quarterbacks have bad matchups this week on top of it too. So you have a hard time kind of like putting guys above Kyler, and that's where I found myself kind of defaulting him into that spot. But in like a normal week, if we had all the healthy guys, I'd rather have Kyler at like 10 or 12. But this week, because we have so many guys off not playing, like we're missing Lamar and all those guys, Kyler finds himself there. But I might need to adjust that, because that one kind of terrifies me personally.
Well, look, you take away, I think it was Jerome Baker in that middle of that Seattle defense, and you put one of the best, if not the best, young linebackers in the game in Ernest Jones, insert him right into the middle of that defense. And you see now that he's had a few weeks to get comfortable, what that defense can be with Mike Macdonald. Mike Macdonald feeling good, the rest of this team feeling good and feeling acclimated to the play calling and the scheme and everything. And you got Ernest Jones over the last couple of weeks. So this Seattle defense, I'm not messing around. In the same game, we'll talk about Geno a little bit later. I'm not messing around with the Arizona defense. You can talk about similar things. Those guys are just, they're growing. Jonathan Gannon is surprisingly doing a great job, and he may not get fired, especially if they make the playoffs this year. And of course, Budda Baker is probably one of the, I mean, he should be up for Defensive Player of the Year. The way he's been playing, he's been absolutely insane. But yeah, I agree with everything you said. Josh Allen just got engaged, right, to an actress. He's feeling good. He proved it yesterday or last week. I think it was like 160-ish total yards through the air and on the ground. QB3 on the week. So like there's no fading Josh Allen. 2 scores through the air, 1 on the ground. So yeah, I don't mind him at 1. Hurts. Yeah, these matchups are great. Kyler's scary. Darnold is scary, but Atlanta can't pass rush anybody. So we got a pretty solid top 6. Let's move on because we can sit here and talk forever about those guys. But let's talk about some fringe starts who you're considering starting versus this group, so 7 through 12, and the next group. But we'll get here in the next 6. We got Jordan Love at Detroit, number 7. In the same game, Jared Goff at 8, playing those Green Bay Packers. But they're in the dome, so that helps. Patrick Mahomes at 9 against the Chargers. Tua Tagovailoa at 10, facing those New York Jets who showed up last week. Will they show up this week? Who the hell knows? Justin Herbert at Kansas City. Herbert's been balling, but now faces one of the best defenses in the league at home. That he is number 11. And then Russell Wilson. We saw what he can do against a terrible defense. He gets a less than terrible defense again, going against Cleveland. That kind of shut this offense down 2 weeks ago. So we will see what happens with Russ here at 12. What do you want to talk about, Jesse?
We talk about Love and the Lions defense. I know everything looks favorably for the Lions defense, but they are dealing with an insane amount of injuries right now. They are the epitome of an unhealthy group, and that's why the over-under on this game is 51. So it might seem really spicy to have Jordan Love in this range. I actually think you can make the case to put Jordan Love above Kyler this week, because I think this game is going to be an absolute smoke show shootout, and it's in the dome on top of it too. So you don't have like this cold weather with Goff issues that people talk about, right? It's in the dome. Both defenses are going to struggle to stop the offenses. So I think it's going to be one of those games where whoever has the ball last likely wins this game, because that Packers offense is super run heavy, but like Jordan Love can still get there and do his thing. Like we've seen him have some really big blow up games and for them this year, and I think that's going to be one of those. So I really like him in this matchup. I was struggling to kind of push him up even higher above Kyler, but it's just the rushing floor of Kyler kind of differentiates those. Darnold, you talked about, like they can't really do much of anything against that pass rush. Like it's easy just going to sit back there, and if you give Darnold time, as long as he doesn't make the boneheaded mistakes, which you kind of have to cross your fingers with Darnold, it's really good. The one we talk about, like we get to Mahomes and the difference of like another defense that's just really beleaguered and injured in San Francisco. That's Caleb Williams, who I have at 10. Yeah. And I'm probably going to end up putting him above Mahomes because Mahomes is facing the Chargers. And the Chargers defense is one of the better units in the NFL. And I know we're seeing Mahomes kind of come on, and the touchdowns are kind of regressing positively because they were getting on the rushing touchdown earlier in the year. It's kind of flipped the script where Mahomes is getting more passing touchdowns. I think we're seeing with Caleb, particularly against San Francisco in this defense, like Caleb and that offense are on another level right now. They're playing very well. You see it since Thomas Brown's taken over. Yep. He's been pushing over 20 points a game. So I really like Caleb, and the more I talk about it, the higher I'm probably going to end up putting Caleb, where I probably put him in the top 8 at some point. I know I haven't done that yet, but like he's probably the guy I'm going to push the highest in this group. But yeah, I like those two guys. And then you can make the case for anyone else. Like I also, with Russell Wilson against Cleveland, that defense can be had. And then we'll kind of talk about Jameis in the next tier. I think those two guys are really interesting because I expect that game to kind of, like we saw Pittsburgh against Cincinnati was a shootout. We could see this where Cleveland's trailing throughout and Jameis, throws for 500 yards again type stuff because they have to do this. So I like a lot of guys on that range. Who really stands out to you in this like tier 2?
Yeah, I love the Goff matchup. Like you said, it's really interesting. We know you can't run on Detroit. We know you want to run on the Packers versus passing against them, but at the same time, this offense is built to do whatever the hell they want in Detroit, whenever the hell they want, and they're at home on a fast track. Jared Goff could easily, we've seen Jared Goff not get there, because the backs are going wild. Jared Goff could easily just have a couple of dump down screens to Gibbs. He could hit, ARSB on an easy crosser, and all these guys, and JML, and all these guys can take it to the house. So Jared Goff can go off whenever. And I think I like the idea that this game is going to be super high scoring. So I might actually bump Goff above Love. I have Love at 7 and Goff at 8. The way we have them, I don't mind switching them up. Otherwise, I like Tua. This Jets defense has been terrible. Tua has been excellent. Let's see if I can pull up. I was actually surprised. I was looking at his numbers the other day. Let's see. Does this have?
Really good.
Yeah. So, oh no, I got to go to games. Here we go. So, in the last month, 20 of 20. Well, we'll start from actually Arizona. The last 6 weeks since Tua has been back playing. 28 of 38 against Arizona, 25 of 28. That's Buffalo. 20 of 28. The Rams, 28 of 36. That's Vegas. 29 of 40 against New England. 37 of 46 last week against Green Bay. He's throwing a lot more in the last couple of weeks, and his completion percentage is out of control. He's also top 300 yards in the last couple of weeks, and the touchdowns are flowing for Tua. Finishes the QB3 and QB7 in the last 2 weeks, and now he faces a beleaguered Jets defense. Maybe they're back on the right track. Who cares? Aaron Rodgers threw a block, and the whole team went nuts, I guess, last week.
Yeah.
I don't really expect that here for them to keep it up. This team is out of it. So I think Tua has a really nice game here. I'm excited to see him. And then, I think Russ probably gets stymied again, just like he was a bit 2 weeks ago. But we'll see. Mike Tomlin has answers. So.
Yeah, I mean, to your point on Tua, the last 3 weeks, he's been over 20 points in each of those games because he's been awesome. And if you look at it from an EPA basis, and I know EPA is more of a team stat, like you have it also, but you see the difference when Tua has been on the team as opposed to every other quarterback they've had. It's a night and day difference. He's top 4 in EPA per pass snap, and that's like Tua's playing very, very well right now, and he should have another good game against the Jets defense. To your point, like I think Sauce Gardner's out. I don't know if that really matters for them because he's been so bad, but like that's just another guy they lose on defense. So, it could be trouble. So Tua could have a really good game, and hopefully Tyreek Hill and then all those guys get there this week.
Yeah, I was gonna say if only this offense had a receiver like Tyreek Hill to really open it up, it would be so dynamic.
Be amazing.
Anyway, we're gonna move on. QB's 13 through what do we got? 18. This is our tier 3. We start with Caleb Williams. Barely made it at 13. I'm at 12. Jesse at 10. SC's dragging Caleb down here into tier 3. We love Caleb this week. He's been balling. Brock Purdy against Chicago. Don't love the matchup here for Purdy, but he's our QB 14. Jameis at 15. He's going to sling the rock. Will Levis at 16 against Jacksonville. That's the biggest reason why. Geno at 17. Hate this matchup for Geno. I have dumped him down to QB 22 this week, which is why he's this low. And Derek Carr against the Giants at number 18. He should be better, but he has literally no one to throw to. Jesse, who do you like here?
Well, of course, we can wax politically about Jameis, right? Because he's basically the QB2 in points per game. Put up freaking 33 fantasy points in that monster performance against Denver, who gives up less than 200 passing yards in the game. And Jameis is like, I'm going to beat that in the first half by a good amount. So obviously, Jameis is just a wild card. And if you're playing him and if you need upside in this tier, just go shoot the shot with Jameis or Caleb. I think they both give you a ton of upside in this scenario. Jameis, the floor is a little bit lower because like we saw against Pittsburgh 2 weeks ago, really didn't have the touchdowns, and that's the difference for him, right? He only had 219 yards passing. They struggled offensively. That was a snow game. I don't expect, I'll check the weather. I don't think it's supposed to be a snow game. I think it'll be a little bit easier for them to pass in this game, so I'm a little bit more bullish. And then, we talk about Caleb, with Thomas Brown at the helm, he's had 39, 47, and 31 pass attempts. They're playing San Francisco. I know we talk about that defensive league. They still have talent, but I think they're going to have a hard time running against them, with DeAndre Swift. I don't think that's how they're going to get there. I think they're going to get there through the air, and that's how they've been successful with Thomas Brown. So, I'm expecting Caleb to lead the show this week, probably push 40 pass attempts and be over 300 yards in this game. And if he hits a couple touchdowns, that's how Caleb gets the 26, 27 fantasy points for you. So, those two guys stand out to me. I really like them both.
Yeah, and there's also talk of ex-Seattle Seahawk Travis Homer being the starting running back in Chicago this week because Roschon's been limited. He seems likely out. DeAndre Swift has been limited. and his status is up in the air. So we're not really sure what it's going to look like, but you know what it looks like for Caleb? QB4 and QB5 in back-to-back weeks off the back of some awesome performances against Minnesota and Detroit. I know Detroit hasn't been a great defense, but that's still a great team. And it's impressive what this rookie has done over the last 2 weeks, especially. And now he's facing a beleaguered San Francisco defense, to say the least. So we love Caleb this week. He is my QB12. Like I said, you're QB10 this week. And like we already talked about, we might be pushing him higher. Jameis, I don't know. I have him at 13. We know he's going to sling it. Do we remember Sam Howell? Do we remember who Sam Howell is? Because if we remember who Sam Howell is, he was throwing it at Jameis Winston levels, and he was the QB2 for half a season in fantasy football. When you have that much volume, it doesn't matter who you are in the NFL. If you're slinging the rock, you're going to be awesome. I'm not sure where Jameis finished the week last week, but he threw 4 touchdowns. I saw a nice tweet that he threw 6 touchdowns because he threw 2 pick sixes. The Jameis Winston experience is always a fun ride, but you can almost always count on it for fantasy production. Derek Carr, don't start him unless you really have to, but you know, it's like Kamara, MVS, and nobody else. I don't want any part of Juwan Johnson this week. I hope you got him. I hope you got him on waivers. Don't start him against the Giants. The Giants are the actually now second worst matchup for tight ends. The worst is the Carolina Panthers, but the Giants have been horrific against opposing tight ends. You do not want to start your tight ends against Giants. We don't know why, but it's one thing that you don't want to do. Also, conversely, you want to start your tight ends against Kansas City. These things don't make sense, but they are true. They're more than a small sample at this point, so we have to just follow along. Let's move on to our favorite tier. This is tier 4, QBs 19 to 24, and we're going to start with my favorite start of the week. I picked him up in a must-win to clinch the bye game in my home redraft league. It is Cooper Rush at 19. He is facing the abysmal Cincinnati Bengals defense. I have him all the way up to QB 15. We need to get SC on board the Cooper Rush train this week. Matt Stafford at 20 against Buffalo. Kirk Cousins 21 in a revenge game. I'm not sure how much revenge is going to be had, but Cousins will be playing his old team at 21. Aiden O'Connell at 22, terrible quarterback, amazing matchup. Aaron Rodgers at 23 at Miami. This could be a super trap game for the Jets. Not that they have anything to be trapped for other than their own incompetence, but they do face Miami in Miami. And then Bryce Young at Philly. We love Young. We hate the matchup. He comes in at QB 24.
Yeah, you could do Bryce Young, but that Philly defense is absolutely cooking. So I like Bryce Young a lot in any other matchup. I don't want to play him against Philadelphia. That defense is trouble right now. They have Jalen Carter, who's playing like the most amount of consecutive snaps, and this is like a difference maker guy who we talked about when he entered the league. He was a part-time player. This year, he's just not coming off the field, and he's wrecking fools up front, and it's causing all sorts of problems. They have the back end figured out with the two additions. Quinton Mitchell's like a shutdown corner. They Cooper DeJean's been really good too. So these guys have come in and made huge impact for the Philadelphia defense, and I do not want to play those guys. But if we're talking about a guy like you could play this week, I want to attack that Bengals defense like we talk about, because the last 3 games, if you just want to pull up the last 3 games, they have gotten cooked. 290 yards, 297 yards, and Russell Wilson just put up 414 yards, the second most of his career. In those 3 games, they have 4 passing touchdowns allowed, 2 passing touchdowns, and 3. It's just their defense is abysmal. They're dealing with a ton of injuries, and the personnel is just not good. Their defense coordinator is trying everything to figure it out. He cannot scheme them out of these problems, so they're going to continue to have these problems. And it's like you want to, in matchups like this, you just want to attack these guys in really, really good matchups. Since he's the team that you should always start your guys against because they're just atrocious across the board. They have one good guy who's like leading the league in sacks for Anderson. Outside of that, their defense sucks. So yeah, fire them up, baby. Like let's just run with it and make it happen, because it should be a good game to play Cooper Rush, because on the flip side, that offense is one of the best in the NFL with Joe Burrow. So Cooper Rush and that offense are going to have to pass probably 40 plus times in this game. If CeeDee Lamb's healthy, which we hope he is, he could have a really, really good game, and Cooper Rush should be a beneficiary of that.
Guys, I am starting Cooper Rush over Brock Purdy, Will Levis, Matt Stafford, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr. I'm starting him over all of those guys this week. I do not care Cooper Rush had a good game last week. Zach Martin, done for the season, their best offensive lineman remaining. He's out of this game. I don't care. Cincinnati sucks. And on the flip side, Logan Wilson, their inside linebacker for Cincinnati, best player on the defense, arguably, also out for the season. Yeah, I don't really have any reservations here. I'm starting everyone. I'm starting Rico Dowdle. I'm starting, obviously CeeDee Lamb. I'm starting Turpin, where I get return yards. Absolutely. Ferguson, if he plays, if Ferguson doesn't play, I'll fire up Schoonmaker. The only person I'm really not excited to start is Brandon Cooks. I'm not sure if he's playing right now. He's not practicing, or he's at least limited. But the main guys I'm going to play, and I'm going to play with confidence, and that includes Cooper Rush.
Yeah, there's like a couple of these guys. Will Levis falls in this category. Aiden O'Connell falls in this category as well.
Yep.
Really juicy matchups. So if you are desperate and you're in the Bipocalypse area, like where you're missing Lamar Jackson, you're missing a couple of these other guys, if one of those guys is available, you could stream all of them. I think Cooper Rush is the best because the over-under is by far the best of this game because everyone's expecting points. Like the Tennessee game, its over-under is 39. So like I like Will Levis a lot in that game, but like there's just not a lot of points available in that game. So that's why I'm going to prefer Cooper Rush like you're talking about. I think, but you could do either one of these guys if you're desperate and you need a player. They could fill in for you and give you some decent production this week.
Yep. Absolutely. Let's talk about the two guys remaining. Let's talk about Mac Jones at QB 25 and Drew Lock, our lowest ranked quarterback this week at 26. He is set to start for the Giants against the Saints. Just a quick note on Drew Lock here. 21 of 32 last week, 178 yards, 57 rushing yards, though, for Drew Lock, which is interesting. One total touchdown, one interception. But that was against Dallas. Dallas is terrible on defense. You know who's not terrible on defense, and they proved it last week? New Orleans. We'll see if Drew Lock can do anything this week, but that's why he's our final rank guy. Do you care about either of these guys, Mac or Drew?
Yeah, I don't mind Mac this week because if you're looking at another team that's really injured, it's the Titans. Snead's injured. I can't say his name. Owazi, the cornerback, is on IR.
Yep.
McCreary is like on a DMP. Their safety is on the IR. Defensive tackles out. They have multiple linebackers out. So I really like Brian Thomas Jr. And I'm not sure which running back to go with just because like it's probably ETN, but they could have a lead and then it's like a big B situation. It's whatever. But I think Mac Jones could like he's another guy that falls on the range of if you're desperate and you want to play it. It's just I'm surprised the over-under is so low, but I think this more has to do with like both offenses just struggling in general. Like I would kind of want to bet the over, but I'm still not as bullish on these other games. So you could do Mac Jones, but it's Mac Jones on top of it. So don't get above your skis with Mac Jones, right? So it's just it's a juicy matchup with a team that's just really injured across the board. So if you're desperate and you need a quarterback, you can talk yourself into Mac Jones.
Yep. And talking about really injured across the board, the New York Giants are another one who are really injured across the board. But you know who had a full practice today? Tommy DeVito. Maybe he comes back into our fantasy lives for the fantasy playoffs. Oh my God, who cares? Let's move on to tight end on that note and talk about our tight end rankings. I am disappointed in you, Jesse, because your boy, Trey McBride, is not ranked number one. He's my number one. He's your and SC's number two. So he's number two in our fantasy rankings for week 14. Still number one in our hearts. But we got Brock Bowers number one. He's going up against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay gives it up to everyone in the passing game. Brock Bowers, no exception. Trey McBride number two against your Seattle Seahawks. We talked about Ernest Jones. Have a decent safety play there in Seattle, but McBride should eat. Kelsey against the Chargers. That is at home, so he's our tight end 3. Jonnu Smith coming in at tight end 4. Mr. Undeniable this season. Putting it down on fools every single week is Jonnu Smith at tight end 4. TJ Hawkinson, tight end 5 against Atlanta. We know they have no pass rush. They certainly don't have the ability to cover too many guys out there. And then George Kittle at number 6. I've bumped him way down to number 9 in my personal rankings. He's going up against Chicago, but it's George Kittle. I mean, you can only fade him but so far. So who do you want to talk about here in the top 6 tight ends?
Well, let's talk about the greatest rookie tight end we've ever seen, Brock Bowers. So the matchup against Tampa Bay, they have just gotten absolutely destroyed by tight ends recently, with the exception of the Giants, because the Giants are just dealing with injury across the board. They don't have a good tight end. If you go back to freaking week 4, here's the yardage totals for the tight ends against them. The Eagles put up 92 yards. The Falcons, 88. The Saints, 102. The Ravens, 72. Falcons 104, Chiefs 109, 49ers at 57, which is the lowest outside of the Giants, week 39 and week 12. And then we have 77 from the Panthers. And we got Brock Bowers going against them. Yeah, good luck stopping Brock Bowers. This is why he's number one, and I think he's like consensus one for this reason. But like you talk about all these guys, they're really juicy matchups across the board. I'm all about it, so I kind of want to fire a lot of these guys up. So yeah, I'm happy to roll it.
I want to do the same thing you just did, but with Brock Bowers from week 5. Here's Brock Bowers' yardage total from week 5, 97, 71, 93, 58, 45, 126, 38, 140 last week. If you combine those two things, that is a problem, a big problem for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I hope for Tampa's sake and their playoff hopes that they win this game, but Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers should go off in this one. Yes. Let's talk about your guy, Trey McBride, against Seattle. Any reservations here firing him?
No. It's just the lack of touchdowns is really the only thing holding Trey back from really being that true difference maker from the rest of the pack. Because you look at his production and usage is off the chart. The last 2 weeks, he's had 15 and 12 targets, 12 receptions in both those games. I think combined, I'm doing the math in my head, it's like 226-ish yards. So he's over 100 yards in those 2 games. Coming off of the bye, like McBride has one of the best roles in the NFL at tight ends. All he needs is touchdowns because he has a bagel for touchdowns. Now, he did get 1 rushing touchdown on the year, but, like, come on, man. Can we get this guy a receiving touchdown? The Seahawks are, like, an okay matchup. You can have good production against them. Like, McBride was, he was all right against Seattle a few weeks ago. So, yeah, like, I love McBride. If you have one of these 6 tight ends, like, you should be very thankful because once we get outside these top 6, maybe, like, top 8, it starts to get really wonky at tight end. So, like, these are the high-tier guys. Like, Jonnu Smith's just elevated into a different stratosphere since really this season, and particularly like the last couple of weeks. Like he's basically the guy in an offense with first 3 targets and all that stuff. Nice. And this is with Tyreek Hill and Jonnu Smith. Jalen Waddle. They don't care. His head coach is like, we're going to feature Jonnu Smith, and it's working out. He's been awesome. Like he's just been balling out. So yeah, even against the Jets, I don't really care. Like you just fire out all these guys. Like you start them, and you enjoy the ride because it's going to be fun.
To your point on Jonnu Smith, here's the last 3 weeks: tight end 2, tight end 3, tight end 3, 6 for 101 and 2 touchdowns, 9 for 87 and a touchdown, 10 for 113 last week. He should have been the tight end 1 because the touchdown that Tyreek Hill caught bounced off of Jonnu Smith's hands, and he was open, about to walk in. So Jonnu Smith just absolutely balling out, 8, 11, and 11 targets in that time as well. Holy crap, you cannot sit this man. I think that is obvious by now. Let's move on to our tier 2. We've got 7 through 12, and we'll start with David Njoku at Pittsburgh. Not a great matchup. David Njoku has been awesome, and he is getting a crap ton of targets, just like everyone else in the Cleveland offense from Jameis Winston. Evan Ingram at 8 at Tennessee. Decent matchup there. Tucker Kraft at 9. He's facing Detroit. There's really nobody, unless Brian Branch gets involved, there's really nobody who's going to be covering Tucker Kraft. I like him in this matchup. High-scoring game, hopefully. Cade Otton at 10 versus Vegas. They just suck. Sam Laporta at 11 against Green Bay. Got involved last week. Can continue to be involved. We don't need 2 touchdowns every week. We just need, 7 targets, 5 receptions, 65 yards. Maybe you get into the end zone. Come on, Sam Laporta. Let's find some consistency here. And then Will Dissly at 12 at Kansas City. Dissly put up actually 0 points last week in fantasy. This week, he's facing one of the best possible matchups against Kansas City. You go back to the well with Will Dissly, right?
Yeah. You fire him up because he falls into that range kind of the guys that were not super confident in their role. This is like Laporta. This is even the Kraft's kind of in this range. They don't run enough routes to really be difference-making tight ends, but they can give you boom weeks. They catch touchdowns and in the right matchup, which this is for Will Dissly. So I was in the offseason, I like Will Dissly at cost. He's been really good if you've had him. Obviously, he's kind of been up and down. That's kind of the role he plays, but it's Justin Herbert's tight end, man. He's going to get red zone looks. He should be more involved in this matchup because this is a good matchup. So, yeah, if you have Will Dissly, you could definitely start him this week because you could do a lot worse. And we'll see that coming up quickly with these next tier of guys. It's it gets a lot rougher. So, yeah, this is why Will Dissly kind of falls into our tier 2 tight ends. I'm confidently starting this week.
Yep. Cade Otton at 10. He's my 11. There's really not a ton of better options behind him. But against New York Giants, we knew that was going to be a struggle for him. Tight end 23. Last week against Carolina, tight end 33. The problem has been Mike Evans has come back after the bye, and they do not need to rely on Cade Otton. Evans gets his. Both of the backs get theirs in the passing game. And Cade Otton has been the odd man out so far. 7 targets last week, though. Not so bad. So can he make it up and actually be fantasy relevant this week against Vegas?
I think he can. Like, he got 2 red zone targets in that game as well, too. So he got the looks across the board. It's just sometimes when you're kind of the third or fourth option in offense, it doesn't always work out for you. With Mike Evans coming back, it does lower the floor and ceiling. But, like, in good matchups and in plus matchups, like we talked about with Otton, or even in, like, semi-decent matchups, you can start him because, you know, he falls in this kind of boom rush tier 2 tight ends where they have upside. Floor's just a little bit lower. We're talking about Vegas here. Like, Vegas' defense is just not good. Even though they played pretty well against the Chiefs, like, I think that's more of the exception than the rule. So, yeah, Cade Otton, I like him a lot this week. I'm firing him up too.
Yep. And finally, Tucker Kraft at Detroit. He's been coming on in recent weeks. It has corresponded with the injury to Romeo Doubs. Romeo Doubs is still out this week. Love Jaden Reed. Love Tucker Kraft. Are you happily firing him up against Detroit in this game?
Yeah, like, I'm really high on Jaden Reed in this matchup because they're missing Romeo Doubs. Like, I think that really benefits those guys and Kraft as well. The role increases, it grows when anyone else on the offense takes a step back. The guys, there's a lot of good guys in this offense, but just consolidates it. So, yeah, like, you fire him up. He's in that boom bust range, similar to the other tight end in that game, Laporta. Like, it's kind of the same thesis with both of those guys. You're hoping they get a touchdown, they hit some big plays, and it works out for you in what should be a very, very high-scoring game that's a shootout. You want the tight ends of this game because all they really got to do is if they catch 1 touchdown, like, you're good. That's 6 points right there. And then anything on top of that, right? Because you're only looking for double-digit points from any one of these tight ends. So if they give it to you, I think they have a good shot of doing that for you this week.
Laporta last week, 6 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Could be the same thing again.
Weird. Tight end 8. Tight end 8 on the week last
No big
week.
deal.
Tight end's weird. Anyway, let's move on to tier 3. We'll talk about 13 through 18 here. We'll start with Pat Freiermuth at Pittsburgh. He absolutely dominated last week with Russell Wilson going off here at 13 once again against Cleveland. Grant Calcaterra versus Carolina at 14. We got Kyle Pitts, Mr. Fantasy Zero, at 15 here for some reason, ranked this high against Minnesota. Cole Kmet at 16 at San Francisco. Juwan Johnson at 17, but he's at the New York Giants. This is a terrible matchup. If you can avoid playing him, you have to avoid playing him this week, I think. And then Mike Gesicki at 18. He's got a good matchup at Dallas, and he was somehow relevant again, once again, even with T. Higgins on the field. So who do you like in this range?
I'm fine targeting Calcaterra in this matchup. These guys do not run enough routes to be difference makers. That's why they all kind of fall in this tier 3 range.
Yeah.
They have upside, but the floor is really low with a lot of these guys. So you plan to play matchup chess with these guys. He's playing Carolina. And we see Calcaterra be decent. Like, when Goddard's out, he steps forward. He's not Dallas Goedert. He's not as good as Dallas Goedert, but he can give you, somewhat close to that production. And when you're in this range, and like, he's basically free on waivers across the board. He wasn't, So if you can get him, I think you could still pick him up and you could start him. So if you need someone to do it, like, I'm fine playing him this week. You just have to accept the low floor. And this gets into like the Cole Kmets, the Juwan Johnson, who's playing the Giants. It's still a terrible matchup, but like, he's going to be a feature point of that offense. So you're like, why the heck not? And the Kyle Pitts thing, it's just like, there's not enough good tight ends to keep Kyle Pitts outside just because Kyle Pitts is not playing a good enough role. And he's basically the 4th option in that, sometimes 5th option. So it's just kind of just like, he can get there, but it's the same thesis with all of these guys. You just need them to get touchdowns or big plays. And Kyle Pitts is always capable of giving you an 80-yard play because he's just, a different freak athlete. So kind of is what it is.
I'm in the unfortunate position of relying on Kyle Pitts to move on in the Scott Fish Bowl in the round 3 of the playoffs this week. I am starting him. I was able to bench him last week with a full complement of players. This week, because I'm relying on Kyle Pitts, that means I am praying for Trey McBride regression. Kyler to Trey 3 times. Let's go. Let's move me on in the Scott Fish Bowl playoffs. Why not?
Let's go, baby.
It's all about me. Who cares? Fantasy football, ladies and gentlemen. Juwan Johnson, just real quick. We know Taysom Hill went out. 70% of snaps for Juwan last week. 7 targets, only 5 for 36. But again, he wasn't doing much for half the game before Taysom went out. So we know Juwan is the guy. It's just those New York Giants are so stingy to tight ends. They are, giving up 5.8 fantasy points per game to the tight end. Only the Detroit Lions have been a worse matchup. Brian Branch, ladies and gentlemen. Brian Branch.
Very good.
Yeah. Let's talk about the rest of these guys. For some reason, I'll include 25 and 26 because, let's see, theoretically, one of these guys is playing because we got a couple guys who I don't even know who the odd man out is, but maybe we'll find him. It might be a Carolina guy. So we will start with 19. We got Noah Gray at 19 against the Chargers. Chig Okonkwo at 20 because he's playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. Dawson Knox at 21 because we expect Kincaid will be out, but we will see. Noah Fant at 22 at Arizona. Arizona been stingy as hell. Booter, Baker, good luck Noah Fant or AJ Barner or whoever else. Tommy Tremble at 23 because JT Sanders should probably sit, but he might play. Looks like things are very much 50-50 for Sanders this week. Jake Ferguson, another guy who should play, but we'll see. He's at 24. If he does play, I'm going to move him up significantly because he's playing that crappy Cincinnati defense. Shoemaker at 25. In case Ferguson doesn't play, we'll move Shoemaker way up. One of those guys is skyrocketing. We got Tyler Conklin for some reason, a New York Jet, just in case you were unaware, at 26. And then let's see, is there anyone else worth talking about? Probably not. Let's talk about two of these guys and then call it a show.
All right, let's talk about Ferguson. He's by far the best tight end in this range. His role's the best. It's just if he's healthy or not. And you can even pivot to Shoemaker. I think he's fine. He doesn't run enough routes. They end up splitting the route. This is kind of like you can highlight Darnell Washington if you want a touchdown. Like that's what Darnell Washington will bring in this range. But the whole Shoemaker thing and Ferguson, Shoemaker is a tight end you can pivot to if Ferguson does not play. But it's just a lower floor. It's a lower ceiling. If we get Ferguson full go, he's going to be pushing towards that top 12 because there's just not enough tight ends that have that role. This is a dream matchup. It's going to be a shootout. So in that scenario, Ferguson's by far the best player on target. Like, it's not even close. Like, Chig Okonkwo, hell, I'm not doing Chig over him or these other guys. Like, it's just him. And then I think you can make the case, like, if you really are really desperate, like, to do the Dawson Knox thing, if Kincaid does miss, like, Knox, like a lot of these other guys, it's a decent role. It's not the best role in the world, but we've seen production from him in the past. His career, he's been a tight end one in his career twice, like 2 years before Kincaid got there. So you could do the Knox thing again this week if you really need to, like, find tight ends and there's none available.
Per friend of the show, Derek Brown, Ferguson should return this week. He's been out with a concussion the last two. We'll see if he does. That's still to be determined, but let's pretend he does. Cincinnati has allowed the fourth most receiving yards per game and second most fantasy points per game to tight ends this season. That sucks. They sucks, and now their middle linebacker, sucks to be him because he's out this season, Logan Wilson. So, yeah, it's just everything's lining up. Ferguson, Shoemaker, I don't care. I'm firing up whoever is playing in this game. I really like him. Also, JT Sanders looked so good. I know he had a tough injury. He should probably sit another week or two. There's no need to rush back the rookie after a weird neck-head injury thing. Basically fell on his head doing a flip. He was flipped. Tommy Tremble looked good in his stead. I know they're playing Philly, but they need options here. And, who are you going to trust? Adam Thielen against those corners, or Tremble or JT Sanders against the Reed Blankenships of the world. I'm going to go for the tight end. Whichever one is out, I will play the one who is in. Thoughts on those guys?
Yeah, like the thing with Tremble and or Sanders is the rookie. He's coming on strong. But that injury, like, I don't expect him to play, so I'm just fully expecting Tremble. It's tough. I'm not a super big fan of this matchup. That's why I'm like lower on him. But yeah, like when you get into this range of tight end, you just want to chase upside because the floor with all these guys is practically zero. So shoot your shot. If you think he can get in the end zone and score a touchdown, I mean, go for it because you're talking about Noah Fant in a bad matchup against Arizona, like Tyler Conklin against Miami. Miami's defense has been shut down. Moreau, Washington, Bellinger, all these guys. It's just rough. So if you're this desperate, like 2 tight end leagues or whatever it is, right? Like, yeah, you could pull the trigger on him. It's just, I'm not super excited for him this week. I'm not ideal matchup.
No, Philly is the 8th worst matchup for tight ends. They are 25th. So it goes, 25th best, I guess, or 25th best matchup. Yeah. Anyway, but here are the rankings. They're much better everywhere else. Philadelphia, they're 28th against quarterback, 29th against running back, 28th against wide receiver. So stingier to those positions than the tight end. So I think if you get over anywhere, you get over on tight end, and they're going to have to try. The nice thing about this game is Carolina should be down big. So I think that Bryce Young is going to be back there just slanging it to whoever he can. I'm going to bet on those tight ends this week. I don't want to talk about anyone else, so I'm not even going to ask you about anyone else, Jesse. We are just going to straight up end the show. This has been the Week 14 quarterback tight end ranking show. It's Bipocalypse ×2 in Week 14. Good thing we don't need to rely on this game to get us into the fantasy championship. Oh, wait. Anyway, hopefully you don't have any like playoff issues going on this week like Scott Fishbowl. But listen, we're going to petition the NFL. We'll see what we can get done. We'll let you know if the FFU can come through for you for next year. But for now, I am Jeremy. This is Jesse. We are the Fantasy Football Universe. You can find us on YouTube, on TikTok, everywhere. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. We are live 4 times a week. We produce content like this every day and post it on our socials. So join us then. Join us next time, and we will see you later.
Listen up, closely let the games